Good afternoon, I'm Lidia Curanaj. We witnessed a very sad day in America this week. The Department of Justice once again indicting President Trump, this time on charges related to January 6th. You know, I can go through these charges and point out the holes in special counsel Jack Smith's case, but all you really need to know is this. Why did it take 2.5 years? Normally, if someone commits a heinous crime, he or she would be arrested immediately, unless, of course, the prosecution needs more evidence or they can't find the person. In this case, like the other two indictments, there's no new evidence. There's no DNA that was suddenly discovered, and they knew where their prime suspect, aka Trump, was all along. So why did they wait? Here's why. Democrats know that the only way to beat Trump is by imprisoning him.
The question is, how solid a candidate is Joe Biden?
That's the problem. That's exactly the problem.
And
what is exactly the problem?
That we don't know how solid a candidate Joe Biden is.
We know he's not a solid candidate.
Exactly.
He is struggling. I mean,
within his own party.
It is hard to watch.
I get it. I mean, Joe Biden is hard to watch. His mental awareness is waning faster than Hunter's career as the next Picasso. Biden's weakness on the world stage as apparent as the fact that Joe is a liar.
Vice President running point on Ukraine. The average Joe hears that and says, that sounds fishy. What's your understanding of what your son was doing for an extraordinary amount of money?
I don't know what he was doing. I know he was on the board. I found out he was on the board after he was on the board, and that was it. And there's nobody...
Well, you've had a lot of time. Isn't this something you want to get to the bottom of?
No, because I trust my son.
But that doesn't pass the smell test. Like, when you're vice president, isn't there a higher standard? Don't you need to know what's happening with your family? Don't you need to put down some guardrails?
Unless there was something that was... there was something on its face that was wrong.
Of course he didn't think Hunter was doing anything wrong because Joe, aka the big guy, he was behind it all. We found out from former Hunter business associate Devin Archer that Hunter even put his dad on the phone while conducting business with Ukraine and China to show them, you don't want to mess with us.
There's no corruption here at all. This is totally normal. Joe Biden had no role whatsoever in his son's business or knowledge of it. But
right.
How would, I mean, that seems false.
Yeah, I think that, I think that's categorically false. I think that he was aware of Hunter's business. He met with Hunter's business partners. I mean, you found a letter that illustrates that he knew me.
You just heard him right there say that was false. And speaking of that letter, it's right there on your screen. From Joe to Devin, applauding his work with Hunter. Devin also told Tucker that he met with Joe Biden at least 20 times, in addition to the 20 phone calls that Joe would be put on with the business associates. Again, remember, Joe Biden has maintained all along that he knew nothing of his son's business dealings. Listen, the issue is not even Hunter putting his dad on the phone or even meeting with Devin. The issue is Joe getting on the phone with those business associates voluntarily, knowingly, and then lying, all of it to intimidate his son's business partners. No one made Joe do this. He did this for a very specific reason: to enrich the Biden bank accounts by using his power and influence as the vice president of the United States. He was the VP at the time. This is the very definition of corruption. It's not a coincidence, as you see on the graphic right there, that every time a bombshell about Hunter or Joe would come out, Trump was indicted. They are so desperate to stop Trump from winning the White House again. Joyless Behar of The View said the quiet part out loud. Take a listen.
What about Sonny if he makes a deal with Smith?
Without jail time?
And without jail, he says, look, I'm going away, I'm moving to Saudi Arabia. Wouldn't that be good? Just go away. I don't even care if he goes to jail. I don't have it in my heart to punish the guy. I just want him to go away and stop ruining my country.
You hear that applause? She just wants him to go away. So she doesn't think he's technically guilty of any kind of crime because he hasn't done anything. Do you think Joy has an ounce of sympathy or empathy for anyone? No, she just wants Trump to not win the White House in 2024. Most Democrats know Trump doesn't deserve any of this, never mind life in prison. But they all know that if Trump wins, he will finish draining that stagnant swamp of corruption that has infected this entire country.
When you look at what's happening, this is a persecution of a political opponent. This was never supposed to happen in America. This is the persecution of the person that's leading by very, very substantial numbers in the Republican primary and leading Biden by a lot. So if you can't beat him, you persecute him or you prosecute him. We can't let this happen in America.
But it is happening in America. But never forget, this is still the greatest country in the world. Regardless of how you feel about Trump, you have to remember that if they can do this to him, they can do it to you. Lady Justice, she has a blindfold on for a reason. Equal justice for all, not injustice for those you fear will expose you.
And this will be the single biggest and most important election in the history of our country, maybe in the history of the world, because we're going to turn our country around, because our country right now and our leader right now is an embarrassment. He can't put two sentences together. He can't speak. I watch, everybody's on, even me, I'm watching, I say, oh, this guy, he can't talk.
And that was Donald Trump right there in Columbia, South Carolina last night. And this is indeed the most important election in American history.